Good morning, friends. Mr. Mike from the Mechanicsburg Learning Center, coming to you live on Facebook. I want to thank you so much for tuning in this morning. It is a Monday, and it's getting harder and harder to remember which day it is, but nonetheless, it's time for Dino-A-Day, presented by the Mechanicsburg Learning Center. Today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. We're going to talk about an entire species of dinosaurs, and not just necessarily concentrate on one single dinosaur. So today's species of dinosaur is called the Pachycephalosaur. Now, there is a dinosaur called Pachycephalosaurus. This was discovered back in 1943, and I'll show you an example of what this guy looked like. The Pachycephalosaurus, usually when there's a very distinct animal named, and then they find other animals that are similar to it, they all come under the umbrella of a Pachycephalosaur. So for example, you have Tyrannosaurus rex. Then there's a whole lot of animals under the umbrella of Tyrannosaur, okay, that may be related to it, may look a little different, but it is related to the Tyrannosaurus rex, which was the first species named. So that's the case with this little guy here. Really wasn't that little. But of course, the first thing you're going to notice about it is its distinctive head. Its name, Pachycephalosaurus. Now this is the Pachycephalosaurus. The Pachycephalosaurus, its name means thick-skulled lizard. Didn't mean it was dumb or didn't mean it was stubborn. You can just see by those crazy outcroppings of bone growth here, as well as its dome. That's how it's got its name. Okay, so the Pachycephalosaur comes along in 1943. 30 years later, they discover an animal called Sgrignoli. Sgrignoli, very similar to Pachycephalosaur, head construction a little bit differently. And then in 2004, the dinosaur that I was going to talk about today was discovered, and that one's called DRACOREX. Now, the reason I'm not concentrating on DRACOREX, once again, dinosaur science has another controversy. Just a couple of years ago, a very famous paleontologist by the name of Jack Horner did a TED Talk and discussed the idea that maybe these animals aren't just related, but maybe they're in fact the same animal. Now, the reason he said that is because he found it very interesting that scientists were always discovering adult dinosaurs. Every time they made a discovery, it was the adult dinosaur. They never found juveniles or babies or middle-aged dinosaurs. It was always fully grown, and the only way they could really tell that these dinosaurs were fully grown was if they cut through the bone to see the age of the thing, just like a tree. They could tell how old the thing was by the rings in its bones. And who wants to cut up a dinosaur bone once you discover it? Well, just so happens Jack Horner had enough of his own dinosaurs discovered that he started doing these cuts and trying to narrow down how old these animals were. So his theory that more and more scientists are beginning to come around to is that the Pachycephalosaurus is the same animal as subsequent species that have been named since then. So Sgrignoli, named in 1973, we think is a juvenile Pachycephalosaurus. We think that DRACOREX, which was discovered in 2004, is a younger Pachycephalosaurus. Let's take a look at DRACOREX. There is a difference. I'll put the head really close here. DRACOREX, give you some history on DRACOREX. DRACOREX means Dragon King. As I mentioned in previous episodes of Dino-A-Day, every dinosaur has two names, Tyrannosaurus rex. Rex is its second name, small r, not capital R. Tyrant lizard, rex means king. This DRACOREX, tyrant lizard, second name is Hogwartsia. Does that name ring a bell? DRACOREX hogwartsia, which means dragon king of Hogwarts. Why? Because it looks so much like a dragon, inspired by the Harry Potter movies. In fact, it was a very complete skull, beautiful specimen that had all these wonderful horns and bumps and crazy looking things on it. So the skull was actually donated to the Children's Museum of Indianapolis, and then they had a contest, and all these folks voted on names, and they came up with DRACOREX hogwartsia. So all these animals are now starting to come under the same umbrella, not only of Pachycephalosaurus, but actually Pachycephalosaur. So let's give you a couple more looks at Pachycephalosaurus. Okay, different version, same dome. All right, compare this to this. This is a much older model. This is a more recent model, but you can see the similarities. Very high dome. Here's a cute little baby Pachycephalosaur. Looks like it's ready to do some headbutting, which is more conjecture. They think it maybe did some headbutting, but they weren't sure. Then they discovered a skull that had healed from an injury, so they said, oh, it must have done it. And now they're coming back around to saying, well, it was more ornamental than anything. But boy, isn't that a cute little model. And then compare that to what we now know is described as DRACOREX. Okay, no dome, but similar head horns. Okay, so here's a better illustration of what may have gone on. Look closely here. This would be DRACOREX. No dome, but lots of horns. The theory is that as the animal aged, look what happened. Oh, a little dome starts to appear. This would be your Sgrignoli, this would be your DRACOREX, and then this would be the full-grown Pachycephalosaurus. So, are they all the same animal? Maybe. We're going to read a story, though, about a Pachycephalosaur. And the great thing about it is, all of these animals come under that category. If you want to be specific and talk about a particular dinosaur, then you talk about Pachycephalosaurus. But all these different animals are definitely Pachycephalosaurs. From Dinorific Poetry, Volume 1, illustrated by my son, Ethan. Wacky Pachycephalosaur, tell me, does your head get sore? Ramming it against your pal, trying to impress some gal? Wacky Pachycephalosaur, late at night we hear you snore. You're exhausted from your fight, crashing heads all day and night. Wacky Pachycephalosaur, here's one brute that's not a bore. Bash and bam, that sound is great, smashing with his hard head plate. Wacky Pachycephalosaur, scientists are not so sure. Did you really use that dome to protect your mate and home? Wacky Pachycephalosaur, every theory yields 10 more. Maybe you decided that. It's just a great place for a hat. The Pachycephalosaur, in this case, the Pachycephalosaurus. Not only was it in our first book, but it became the star and cover model for Dinorific Poetry, Volume 1. So, the reason I wanted to concentrate on DRACOREX is we may not have DRACOREX as a dinosaur within the next, couple of years. It may disappear completely. So let's talk about it now before it is consumed by the Pachycephalosaur species, and no one talks about DRACOREX anymore. But the similar thing is happening with the Triceratops. There are so many ceratopsians with different crazy horns, some that stick out on its nose, some that come out this way, some that bend this way, some that have a real ornamental frill, some that have a more simple frill, some bend this way, some bend back. We're starting to think maybe some of these are all the same animal. Maybe they're all just different versions of a Triceratops, and they're not these unique species. But that's what makes dinosaur hunting so interesting. So, until tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, this is Mr. Mike from the Mechanicsburg Learning Center. Today's animal was the Pachycephalosaur, the umbrella, and under it, Pachycephalosaurus, and for the time being, Sgrignoli and DRACOREX. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Enjoy yourself, and remember, you never know when these animals are going to be around and when they're going to be named and when they might change their minds. So study all the dinosaurs now before they're gone.